Hello, and welcome to this CliQr feature video, where we're going to discuss how CliQr supports Infoblox. CliQr provides full lifecycle support on any cloud with the following topology. The manager is the central hub of activity in CliQr, and it's accessible through a graphical user interface, a command line interface, and a REST API. Here at the manager, you do things like set governance policies, so who's allowed to do what where. You manage your users, applications, and clouds. And then you also create your application profiles. These are the cloud agnostic descriptions of what the infrastructure needs are for a particular application. At deployment time, these application profiles are sent from the manager to a cloud-specific orchestrator running on a particular cloud. That cloud orchestrator will spin up VMs and networking to fulfill the needs specified in the application profile. It'll then install an agent on that VM that communicates information like CPU utilization, memory utilization, and other things back to the orchestrator that created it, and ultimately back to the manager. And the manager uses that information to enforce those governance policies and then to provide all that management. Infoblox integration occurs here at the orchestrator with a feature called callouts. So CliQr Orchestrator callouts are a set of programmatic hooks that you can use to influence the virtual machine creation process. So most typically, like you would with Infoblox, this is used to influence the IP address and the DNS entries for a particular VM. But you could use it for things like CMDB or a few other use cases as well. So this is configured at an orchestrator level, so it impacts all VMs that are created by that orchestrator. There's three hooks shown in text here and shown graphically over here on the right-hand side. VM naming, IPAM, and IPAM2. So what happens is the orchestrator, as it goes to create a new VM, it'll first, if present, call this VM naming hook you can use to go execute a script of any kind to go find a DNS name for that particular VM. And then you set an environment variable at the end of that script, which will then be used once the VM is created and injected into it. Similarly, there's this hook for IPAM for when you go create the IP address initially. Again, you've got a second script that you might be able to use here. Both of these pieces of information are used when the VM is created. The VM lives its life, and then when it's shut down, there's a third hook, this IPAM2, that can be used as a script here to go free up whatever resources were allocated before the VM was created. On the orchestrator, here's what that looks like. In our callout directory, there's IPAM, IPAM2, and VM name subdirectories where we place one of these callout comp files. Within the callout comp file, we specify what script it is that should get executed to go complete the callout. So if we look at the contents of this callout.conf file, you can see it's pretty simple. We give it a name, we tell it we want it to go execute a script, we tell it which phase we want this to apply to, in this case the IPAM, and which script it will execute, in this case the createhost.py. It can be actually any script you want, not just Python. With that config in place, let's see what you do when you go to deploy the application profile to take advantage of this. So here's just a simple Ubuntu VM, and we're going to give it a deployment name. We'll put an aging policy on this so that it won't run for longer than an hour. And then we select the network that Infoblox is controlling. Then we'll submit the application profile. A few minutes later, when this is deployed, notice now we've got our single Ubuntu deployed, and it's got an IP address of 10.49.10.1. Now if we go over to Infoblox and we check this network, we can see that this IP address has now been allocated. So that covers the beginning part of this life cycle. Let's now take a look at what happens at the end when, within CliQr, you begin to destroy this VM. If we go into CliQr, and from our action list on our deployed applications, we select stop and say yes, that'll begin to tear down the VM. If we now go over to Infoblox, we'll notice that when that VM shuts down, the IP address will be removed and returned to the pool of available IPs. So with CliQr support for Infoblox, we're taking advantage of a CliQr feature called Orchestrator callouts. It's a set of script hooks that run at both VM creation time and at VM destruction time that are set per orchestrator. So they'll impact all the VMs that are created or destroyed by that particular orchestrator. You can use this for integrating things like CMDB, or as we're doing here in the Infoblox support, for IP address and DNS management. So what happens is CliQr provisions the VMs, and as it does that, it uses the script hooks to go out and talk to the Infoblox API and use Infoblox to take advantage of the IP address and DNS management services that it offers. And that's it. Thanks for watching. For more information, please visit cliqr.com.